These are the people in the agency, in the agency, in the agency. Oh, these are the people in the agency, in the agency, in the agency, and these are the people in the agency. The people that you meet when you're walking down the street. The people that you meet each day. Well, you can't walk down the street. That doesn't sound that's so stupid. And he's connected to the audio, to the
And
audio, to the
connected.
audio. And
If you
these are
want
the
to stay
people in it.
connected, the writings on the wall. If you know your mind's neglected, stumble, you might fall. Stumble, you might fall. What?
What song is that? Why does it sound so familiar? What song
Stereo
is that?
MCs. Stereo MCs connected, 1992. Dude, what's your problem? Here to stay
Like,
alive, staying alive.
my Adidas. Because you're talking about 1992. Wait, my Adidas is not 1992. My Adidas was 1986. My Adidas.
What is your problem, Adidas? All day I dream about sex. Is a corn fan. That's a D. You never
Oh
heard of,
yes,
you know,
that's a classic one. Yes, yes, yes,
a
yes. I
corn
have
song.
that
Like,
song somewhere, and it was playing
yeah.
one time. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's what this song means.
Adidas. Well, no, I mean, the reality of the situation is Adidas, in actuality, is named after a German clothing manufacturer by the name of Adi Dassler.
Hmm.
And yeah, Adi Dassler was the guy who, invented came up with this brand of clothing and shoes, Adidas sneakers and what have you. And then he and his brother, they had a falling out. And his brother said, "Hey,
Hmm.
I gotta make my own shoes. I gotta make my
I
own set of
remember
shoes."
that. Right.
And he called it Puma. So yeah,
Uh-huh. I had a
yeah.
Puma shoe almost 3 years. It was
Wow.
a gray suede Puma I got when I went to Canada when I was about 9 or 10. And I
Yeah.
wore that shit. I wore that shoe until it literally fell apart. And even then, I was trying to tape it up with tape because that shoe was so. I have never worn a shoe so comfortable in my life.
Yeah.
Ever since.
I know. Yeah.
You
I
know,
hear that. I hear that. I
Puma,
hear that.
Puma. Is it Puma or Puma?
It's Puma. Puma.
Puma. Puma is a
Yeah.
damn good shoe. I don't know how it
It
is
is.
now. I don't know how it is now. But
No.
yeah, I remember reading that story. I'm thinking, you just lopped off 2 letters just to make it sound less Nazi-ish. So it went from being well, Nike is the god of is the god of
Goddess of Victory. Yes.
right.
Yes.
So I always thought Adidas was like some kind of god, Greek god for something, right? And when I
Right.
read that story, I'm like, holy shit! Well, you just turned this thing from being Adidas, from being hardcore German, Nazi fascist kind of shit, to this kind of soft brand that sounds Greek, it sounds heroic and it sounds, I don't think it is. Holy shit, jackass. That's interesting though because I heard what you call it?
Yeah.
I heard a BBC interview. No, it
Mhm.
was not a BBC. It was a um, 60 Minutes interview. I'm pretty sure it's online with the new director in charge of VW. And
Mm.
well, he's German, obviously.
Well,
And
yeah, yeah. Over Alice
VW,
Budge.
VW on the verge of being, erased from existence because of the shit they were doing with the emissions. They were lying
Right.
about how much
Yeah.
emissions.
Yeah.
So they were interviewing him and talking about, VW being in space. But the thing they mentioned was VW's roots are in this, Nazi Hitler kind
Yeah.
of situation.
Yeah. Exactly. I
So,
mean,
so,
mhm.
uh-huh.
No, there's footage. There's footage of Hitler walking, walking around in the Volkswagen plant, looking at this car, what would eventually become what we know to be the iconic Volkswagen Beetle back in 1938.
Mm-hmm.
He was
Mm-hmm.
there. They
Mm-hmm.
wanted to mass produce something called the people's car because that's what Volkswagen is.
Mm-hmm.
In literally
Volkswagen
in
is the
German,
people's
it's
car.
called the people's
The
car, Volkswagen. You
people's
see?
wagon. People's
Yeah,
wagon.
the people's wagon, Volkswagen. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So they figured, well, you know what the hell? I mean, Hitler's dead. The Third Reich is defeated. It's in ashes. But fuck it, we're just gonna make a car anyway.
No,
You
but
know?
I thought the European allies
Yeah,
afterwards the reconstruction plan that this
yeah.
guy came up with.
The
What
Marshall
was
Plan,
it?
you mean?
The Marshall Plan. One of
Yes,
the items for that was to rebuild German industry, and
exactly.
that was the flagship. And
Yeah.
it was the right thing to do. In the world nowadays, you're thinking, oh my God, there's so much crap going on. There are things that happen in the history of the world that
Of
have
course.
impacted us far-reaching by just the mere fact that somebody says, "Hey, look, here's some money, finish this project." It's
Mhm.
not a bomb, it's not a missile, it's not whatever. It's a car. And
Mhm.
then we talk, and then obviously you can't talk about VW until you talk about the advertising of VW.
Yeah,
Chiat Day's advertising for VW in the 60s is what made the car
that's
part of
right.
the counterculture
Oh
of,
yeah.
of the United States. This
Oh yeah.
this idea, if you look it up, Lemon is the famous ad where
Mhm.
it's just a picture of the car, and you basically say, look, this car is crap. It's a terrible, terrible car. It looks terrible. It's ugly as fuck, but it goes this fast, and it's
Yeah,
extremely fuel efficient, and
yeah.
it's
But the
cheap.
but the magical thing about it was they said it's an ugly car, but they made it so ugly it was beautiful, and that's
Yeah,
the thing about advertising. With advertising, you can almost take shit and turn it into sugar.
yeah,
So if you're looking at a vehicle like a Volkswagen, I mean, at first glance, you're really not into it, but because of the advertising, they come up with and the way in which the advertising was done, highly revolutionary. There's a very memorable TV ad that came out in the early 1960s, 1961, if memory serves me right. And all you have is the ad centers on this dude trying to get to the snowplow in the dead of winter. And the voiceover says, "Ever wondered what happens? The guy who uses the snowplow, how he gets to the snowplow? He drives a Volkswagen. So you can stop wondering." And here you see this guy, and like I said, it's bitterly cold. You don't want to go out there for anything, and here you are driving this little beetle that seems it's just plodding through the snow and the slush, and you're going to get to the snow plow. And that alone, simplicity, that is how you sell something. And yeah, it became extremely iconic. And that was the car of the 60s. I don't think there's any other car that can come close in terms of visibility, in terms of I mean, sure, you have, your American muscle cars, you've got the Mustang, you've got the Dodge Charger, you even have the British Mini to some degree. But
yeah.
if you look at that little Beetle, you cannot. I mean, you can't turn away from it. It is instantly recognizable. You know what brand they're talking about. And personally, though, I would like to see a resurgence of that
Yeah.
Beetle and make it, I don't know, more environmentally friendly or something like that. Because
Well, that
really,
was
it's
the
a
story. That was the story
it's a
in
great
60
design.
Minutes. One
Yeah,
of the things in 60 Minutes we're talking about is that because of the VW debacle, they are
yeah,
forced to move into electric cars. So they
right.
have there's electric vehicles, what they call EVs, and then they have the hybrids. And and what VW is trying to do is VW is trying to develop its own, because they say we're an engineering company more than anything else. We've forgotten our roots. Because I mean, if the Volkswagen, that car has an engine in the back. It is
Right.
not water cooled. It is not a water-cooled engine. It is entirely, the engine is designed so that it does not need a lot of moving parts and water. So that means that the car is less, it's easier to maintain. Now, the problem is that you can't maintain now because parts are non-existent and whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the story is that um, you never see a car like that anymore. They've tried to do it. Other people have tried to do it. Only Volkswagen has succeeded in doing it. And what the guy is saying is that we need to go back to that. We need to create the fifth competitor to Tesla with a true electronic vehicle, electrical vehicle that is on par with what we did with the VW way back in the 30s, where we developed a car that was so well engineered. It's like Jeep, Jeep, the old Jeeps, those cars that run around the jungle, those things, Land Rover too. Land Rover designed a car that you could fix it in the jungle. It was that easy to fix. But again, to digress. What I'm saying is that they're trying to develop an electronic vehicle or a hybrid that has a better battery, longer lasting, you don't have to charge it up as much, and it's also environmentally friendly. Because unfortunately, the problem is that we're moving from a gasoline combustion engine, which is giving off carbon monoxide and CO2 and all this stuff, to a battery that when it breaks down is going to basically destroy the environment anyway. So there isn't much trade-off. And the fact that to charge your electric vehicle, you're going to have to burn gas anyway to charge it. So it's not like you're trading anything off, you see, which is the argument. But anyway, the advertising for electronic vehicles are terrible, horrible. Because you come back to how they stole VW. They decided that this is how we're going to position VW. And the story is when they presented the idea to the client was like, no, the local or the American distributor of VW. He's like, you can't sell the car like Rodney Dangerfield. Are you insane? And they're like, no, we know what we're doing. We have to be self-depreciating because it's a god-awful, ugly car. Yeah. And I've driven in it. It's a loud car. It's extremely hot in the car. It's like you can try it out if you drive in a VW in the middle of the day. You're in an oven. I know. You're in an oven.
I know.
Anyway,
I know very well.
So that leads us to say that, well, we have rambled on and we have not introduced ourselves.
We haven't. Ian Reed. That's a pity. I'm Jarrod Butts.
Jarrod Butts. We worked in advertising.
We did.
Some years ago. And it scarred us for life.
Eons, and it scarred us for life. We still suffer from cases. Yeah. This is the way. This is how we vent. This is how we were able to. The more we vent, the more we're able to just detoxify what happened to us in our respective tenures while working at, as we like to call it, the agency.
The agency. We've been told to name the agency now. We've been told to name the agency now.
We can name the agency, really?
No, but we've been told to, and I'm not doing that because I still think I want to. I'm
not
also,
taking basket.
No, not only that. I'm also putting the call out for anybody. We always ask for anybody who wants to come and jump in and talk. We always have people jumping in and talking, like Quincy and Anthony and so on. But what we're saying is, if anybody working at the agency now who wants to come and jump on and talk, absolutely. No problem. I know we have a couple of listeners from the agency who want to remain anonymous. And I'm saying really? Thank you very much, yes. I also want to shout out to Kendall Toloka. Kendall Toloka messaged me this afternoon to say that he enjoyed the last two episodes. He listened to it on YouTube. And he wishes that I would put this stuff out on YouTube at the same time. And I kind of told him, look, it's just only so much that I can do during the day. So you're just going to have to, so he said he's going to try to, we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, we're on all these other podcast platforms, and we're on YouTube. But the YouTube comes out, we put the YouTube out on Wednesday because we want our listeners who are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all these other platforms to have a little exclusive kind of feeling that, they're
It's
exclusive.
special.
They feel special. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome, thank you.
Yes. Well,
we had asked some people to come and jump in and talk today, but it was kind of like an open mic kind of situation. I don't know if anybody will jump in, which is the state of the situation of our quote unquote unappealing podcast. Oh, by the way, we've also been told to shout out to that person on Twitter, but I'm kind of putting that on the reserve. So if you want to hear more about that, go to our episode 13.
Go listen to Lucky episode 13.
Unlucky episode 13. But
yeah.
One of the things also suggested, we had a great episode yesterday with Randall Singh.
You mean last week with Randall Singh?
Yeah, well, sorry, last week.
That was last week.
Because we taped this on a Wednesday. The episode with Randall came out this week, the one because we're recording on a Wednesday. So it will be next week for you all because, we publish this on a Monday. I have to go through it and I have to take out all of Jarrod's cat sounds and, farts and all that shit.
Wait a minute. I do not do that. I don't break wind. What the hell's your problem?
I do.
Well, at least not during the podcast. I don't break wind. I don't know what your problem is. I don't know what is wrong with you, kid. I mean, seriously.
Actually, I've been told on the side. I've been told that I do a very good vomit sound effect.
Yes, you do. You're very good at it.
Yeah, But Kendall said he's really happy with the last episode because Randall was talking about stuff that he was involved in. And he wanted to say that it brought back memories and he was laughing at it now. But when he was in it, it was traumatic. Yeah. So he says he's really thankful, we had a bunch of comments.
Comments
on our post. I'm in semi Facebook jail. I can't do live until next month. So
what did you do? What did you do now?
It's since the last thing. They put me in this kind of limbo where I can't go live and I can't run ads. Yeah, I know. Anyway, I want to read some of the comments. I'm gonna find the post. We're gonna talk much more about social media in this episode. So hold on to your hats. It's gonna be.
Hang on to your hats if you have any.
Hold on to your lug nuts.
Yes.
All right. So Alison told us.
What?
Alison Harvell says, episodes are getting better. Keep it up. Yay. So thank you, Alison. Alison used to be an account coordinator. Oh, here's Q. We will invite Quincy. Alison used to be an account coordinator at the agency when I was there. We'll wait for Quincy to. Hello, Quincy. Welcome to the show.
Quincy!
Yo, you heard me?
Yeah, man. You're quite fine. Thank you.
Always good to hear you, man. Always good to have you here with us.
So we just kind of reading some comments here from people on the show. So let me just get through that and then we'll kind of jump into what we want to talk about today. Tony says, because I said in the comment, what I said was, what are the people who are in your agency? We're calling it the people in your agency. That was the theme of last week's episode. And it's a theme that we want to kind of run through, the next couple of episodes. Who are the people in your agency? And Anthony says, the people in your agency are non-creative, overly sensitive, exploitative, and advantageous creative directors. They are the people in your agency. Right?
Well, that's how you really feel, Anthony.
Right? So then my friend Leslie, who also used to work at us at the agency, the people, the lifers who toe the line of the toxic work environments are people in your agency. And we had also talked about that. We had also said that there are people who stay 20, 30 years taking Johnny Depp shit. Sorry. I had to put that. Taking Johnny Depp shit.
Amber alert! Amber alert!
And suffering through it, having ulcers, migraines, constantly going to the doctor. When you really realize it's just psychological. You're in a situation where you're messing with not just your mental health, but your physical health is being challenged.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
Leslie also says the employees who work more on their personal endeavors versus actual agency work are people in your agency. Right? And then she also added, I don't know what LILO stands for. What does LILO stands for?
Lilo and Stitch?
No.
Lilo's the other half of Stitch. Oh.
Yeah, but it's an acronym for something. I don't know. But she says Lilo. Employees who get away with the most are people in your agency.
Yes. It has some people, let me tell you, it has some people, right, who get away with bloody murder.
And I have a story. I have a story for that. So I'll table that, but I have a story, so don't let me forget that story. I'm gonna write that down because that's a fun story.
Write that down.
Yes. People who get away, and it comes into our characters that we were building in last week's episode of where they fall into the category of, when the shit hit the fan, somehow they find themselves clean as a whistle.
Turtles, like a turtle.
Or they tell the shit and then able to dodge it. You see? But then the last comment was David C.V. Smith from Corbin, a friend of ours. He says, the people who have the hookups are the people in the agency. So, the interagency, these two backs in the conference room. There is a story of, in an agency, not our agency, and not an agency in Trinidad though, but there was a story that I was told, I think it was in London, where they found the creative director having sex with somebody, they didn't say who, in the conference room. And they only found out after the traffic meeting. So they were all sitting around the conference room and it was like, wait a minute, what? What?
Bang,
What?
bang,
Everybody just kind of pulled away from the conference room table like, oh my God. Naked butts on the conference room table.
You mean to tell me they left evidence of their DNA? Oh my goodness, it's right.
That's not getting
but well to go, I think conference room is it in the agency, I think. Premium real estate.
It's a big table. It's a big table. I mean, the worst you could do is fall off and roll off and fall off, That's the worst thing, like it was a joke on, not Seinfeld, it was an earlier sitcom, where the guy said the girl's bed was so high, it took 3 seconds for him to fit the floor after he rolled. And Jarrod, your friend Malcolm says he also called me to say that he wanted to say that we did a very good job and he's really, really, really happy with what we're doing. So congratulations. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, Malcolm, thanks, Malcolm. That's really, really appreciated. Right. So, so what we were talking about before Quincy showed up was that we were talking about, old school ad campaigns for something like Volkswagen. The Volkswagen is an ugly ass car, and they didn't try to couch it in pretty things and say, this car is really nice. You just have to get to know it. That kind of thing. It's like, no, this is an ugly car. It's not a very nice car. It's a horrible car, but you'll like it. So the campaign was very successful. It's very famous. And, we were kind of talking about that because I want to lead into something that was shared with me from our friend, what's his name? Sorry, Eddie, I didn't mean to forget your first name, your full name. Mansour.
Eddie Van Halen. Oh,
Eddie Mansour.
Eddie.
Yes,
I know that Eddie.
Yeah.
I know that Eddie.
So Eddie shared with me some posts and some ads that this companies is pushing out. Excuse me. Now, Kendall oil. Now we'll talk about Kendall Toluca, and the joke is we used to call Kendall Toluca Kendall oil. and he used to like that. But anyway, that's an aside. But
That's
Kendall
not
oil
important,
apparently,
really.
That's
yeah,
what I'm
Kendall, yeah, that's not important right now. Kendall oil has started pushing some very, very strange things on their social media. So I just wanted to read the one that I shared in the group because I thought it was weird. I don't know what they were trying to do. So maybe Quincy, you could tell me what you think, right? So it's an Instagram post and it says 4 out of 5 Wetmen, and Wetmen is huge, giant word, pour more Kendall after the first try. I don't know. I don't know if they're trying to be funny. I don't know if they're trying to be scandalous because a wet man, for those who don't know, is a guy who drives a teeter, isn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong. As a wet man.
Yeah. Well, no. According to Trinidad parlance, it is about driving a teeter. If you're a teeter driver, more likely than not, you happen to be a wet man. So I think
So
Well, it
So
has some of that. It has some of that involved in it because, like, a teeter end up getting that title, as you know. But it kind of it had Wetman was out there before teeter as a slang.
Yeah. I remember that.
As a girls man kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then before that as other things, but yeah, it's kind of like that, but I'm saying that to say, help me out. I don't know what I mean.
I don't know what it means either. But what can help though is that they have some photos. There's a carousel post on Instagram. There's some photos of some really hipster-looking people, like a guy in shades and beard in a car, and then a guy with shades looking very wet manish, and then they say wet girl. They kind of just throw this girl in, in a car. It just seems very random. But the caption underneath says, "Who says water and oil don't mix?" Okay, well it doesn't. But our 80% customer retention rate means 4 out of 5 drip bosses continue to use Kendall. So is that the punchline?
You see, this is where I'm sure they mean well, but if you as somebody who is intimate with the ad, if you have to explain what is how the
But if you're a
framework of the
car
ad,
guy, Jarrod, if you're a car guy, you would understand it,
even
right?
even if you are a car guy, Ian, even if you are, what the hell does that have to do with me purchasing Kendall oil?
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
What does that have to? If I am a car guy, if I know how to operate a vehicle, if I'm a mechanic, or I really know how to fix a whatever part of the car it is, engine, radiator, whatever the hell it is, how the hell does that impact on me? You're trying to be funny when in reality you're not so funny. Now, interestingly enough, if I'm not mistaken, I heard a radio ad for Kendall motor oil, and that actually was far more imaginative and a lot funnier too, because the car now, you hear this female voice who's supposed to represent the car, and the car is saying, "Look, I am not just some kind of ordinary, side car that you just want to toss aside. I want quality in me, and I want Kendall motor oil." But you need to hear the ad to understand it. But you instantly tell yourself, "Well, this sounds like something that I would want to use for my vehicle," because it tells you what the motor oil is supposed to do. You make the product interesting. You make people want to listen to the ad over and over again. It's a well thought out ad. But to say 4 out of 5 people prefer it, okay, big whoop. What I had to do with me? And what's the message you're trying to convey? As somebody said to me when I was working in another agency, what is the idea?
Yeah.
What is the idea?
I think Kendall is on brand because their stuff looks unified. It looks good. It looks like an agency is doing it because I've been trying to find out who's the agency. Haven't heard. Nobody's been able to tell me. My contacts have not been able to tell me. They say they're doing it internally. Well, all right. Well, maybe it was an agency person who used to work for the agency has come in to work on the thing. But I'm just scrolling through the Instagram. But there was an ad, what do you call it, Google ad, that was pointed out to me by Edward, which is what caused us to go and look at their Instagram. And it's a very badly designed ad. It doesn't look like the Kendall brand at all. It has bad things happen up in the left-hand top corner. And in the middle, there's a very badly photoshopped car trying to go up some sort of block, white inclined block.
I saw that.
And,
I saw that.
And it just says buy Kendall products. And he's like, what is this? I don't know. He's like, you doing this? I'm like, I'm not doing this. What the hell? He's like, hell no. But the thing is, I don't understand the disconnect between what they're doing for an ad and what they're doing for social media. Because the social media is sounding kind of creative, but an ad still. And their ads are just terrible. You know? So it's still a disconnect, and we've talked about this before, Quincy. It's just a disconnect between what a brand does social media wise and what it does advertising wise. You know?
Yeah, that's exactly what we were talking about. And I mean, even more than just a looking uniform, it's about losing the opportunity to push your core idea, you know, is your core message. I think it should be one message that across platforms you get it, you know. So the universal tool, which is repetition, could get a chance to work. You know, there's no need to do something different on social media than what you're doing in any other stream. And I mean, another thing that we were talking about is, you know, agencies trying to jump on the meme wagon, you know, creating content for social media that might be a little edgy and, you know, funny and that type of thing. If you just concentrate your efforts into telling one story, you know, and don't lock yourself into trying to be social media-ish because you're on social media, but rather use the medium to tell a story and take lead, take charge, you know. I think you'll find yourself a little free from running into them problems.
Yeah. Not just that, but again, we've always been taught the idea is what has legs. It's what carries you. Jarrod and I had a discussion 3 episodes ago about the MasterCard campaign. Priceless is just, it was just the longest running. That just kept going. It's like the Energizer Bunny, you know. But that also just kept going. You know, it just kept
Absolut.
going. Absolut even.
Yeah.
Absolut. Yeah. You know, Absolut.
I think that's the longest running one, right?
Is it? They're still doing it though? Because I haven't seen, like, you know, in the old days, you used to look out for those ads, you see what they're going to do next. But because of digital, and it's very hard. You see, you could have done that on a nice full page press ad on a billboard and see this beautiful art. Because they used to get artists. There was a guy who used to do sand layered art. So he used to make scenes out of different colored sand and used to layer it. And he did that in the Absolut bottle, and that was the ad. And it was beautiful, it was brilliant. But you can't really put that in a social media post. It just, you're not gonna get it. You know, you're not gonna get it. But I don't remember seeing, I don't actually see Absolut anymore. I don't know, maybe just because I'm not looking for it, or maybe
no, I'm not seeing it either. So
yeah.
I had to say I don't really see it, but you see some stuff, point of sale and that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. Maybe they changed at least in Trinidad, they changed their what you call it?
Yeah, they changed their
marketing
strategy. But at the same time, I think you know, I see something like that working in social media as well, and I'm talking about even as a static post. I think the style and the concept and the big idea, which is, centering it around the bottle, which has its significance, could work because those ads were really interesting, even though they were static ads. They were really thought-provoking, like the one that did for Absolut Memphis with the blue suede shoe, and on the strap it had the Absolut bottle in it, like things like that. Real sick. You just look at that, and you don't really need nothing else to get the Elvis reference and all that. Yeah. And it's just cool, it's just a cool thing to see. And I have no reason why you can't do that in a social media context, even though you have the opportunity to animate stuff, and you could animate just that. You could animate the bottle being constructed. And so I think it's a campaign, that works and fits into everything that we're saying, and that you could tell one story. You could send one message and have a cohesive push, with your communication.
Well, I'm going through Absolut International's Instagram, for example, and they do have some of this stuff, like Absolut Raspberry. What they're doing now is real Instagram type stuff, where you take a nice beauty shot of the drink, and then they cut out the shape of the Absolut bottle, and inside of that shape is raspberries, like in raw raspberries on a table,
right.
And then they cut it out again, so it looks like another insect, and then they show the mix with the bubbles and the ice and the raspberry in it, and then the bottle is on top of that. Absolutely, because the shape of the bottle is the unifying factor, and the line is Absolut, it's in our spirit. And I think that's a great line. That's an awesome line. Absolut is in our spirit. But then the rest of the stuff is your typical, a bar crawl photo of people in a bar and a party and whatever. No, that's fine. That's on brand. That's so they're mixing in, their hard sell advertising stuff into their content stuff of throwing a party, and they support the party, Coachella or whatever it is, But they did a nice one here, which is animated, and I think they shot it with a neon light over a big silver ball, and it's for New Year's. And it asks what you're going to do in the new year. And it's very simple, and it's a blue Absolut neon light kind of leaning up on this ball, on this table with some confetti on the table. And it's just, the light is just flickering on and off. And that's it. That's all it is. And they shot that with video, and, it's really, really nice. It's oh, wow, that looks cool, But again, that's not the kind of thing we see here. We don't see this kind of content here. We don't see this kind of art, kind of looking at trying to do something like, what's the word? I had to give kudos to Dwayne do this thing at Trinity Tuna. He went and pretended to shoot a drone fly through a car. He said, "You know how I did it?" I said, "How you did?" He said, "I put it on the end of a stick, and not just a sticker, some broom handle with the broom still. I tied the camera to it, the GoPro to it, and I just went around the car room and pretend I was flying." And I'm like, what?
That's cool.
When you look at the video, he has it up on his Instagram. When you look at the video, I said, but this is a cool drone shot. And he edited to make it look like he passed through the car. He's like, no, I edited that in Premiere After, and I just put it together. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And it's a car, and it's a what kind of car was it, boy? It's one of these old Mitsubishi Lancers that the guy souped up and made it look real cool and stuff, and has it in his house. You don't drive that. If you're driving that, that's to take it to exhibition and just show it in the showroom kind of thing, because you say you don't drive that car. The inside is all orange, and it just looked great, and he lit it and everything was good. It just looked great. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. That's the kind of thing that a content creator who works on their own just comes up with on the fly, So, yeah.
And it's sad because I think that's the kind of spirit that we were supposed to be heading to with, agency stuff. Like it was always, and I think I probably talked about it on the show before too. It was always a scene for me that we have a situation where you have a host of artists with different skills, besides just laying out something. You have people who interested and capable in film and that sort of thing. Like an agency should buy, a proper video camera, a proper camera to do photography, and just allow artists to do things, come up with things. Like I don't see it's be sad when, like, you're doing a job, come up with an idea, pass it through, and the artist will come back to you and say, we can't do this because we can't find anything I can't find the shot that they're looking for on, some one of them sites, like how about we shoot it then? That's where I come from. How about we shoot it? How about we illustrate it? How about we make the shot rather than look for the shot and be restricted to what is available online,
But before we go there, Quincy, how you doing? What you been doing these days? I didn't ask you.
A whole lot, but what I could talk about.
I'll put you on the spot there. Sorry.
Not really. I mean, it's just a host of things. I have a couple projects I'm working on. Some of them kind of confidential. Digging up in crypto, actually, looking at the crypto space and NFTs, that kind of thing. Which actually consuming a good bit of time because there's just so much to absorb, and the old man head taking a little time to wrap around some of the concepts. At least recently I realized that I don't have to make excuses because I'm not alone. That still, and people that in the space already that still, thinking about what it could be, and just hoping that it come out good because it have a lot of loose ends and a lot of just things that up in the air, at this point. But that's one of my bigger focus right now, more or less, in terms of stuff that going on.
Yeah, I tried to get into the NFT thing, and then I felt so much pressure. I just felt so much pressure that I had to do this really, really fast. And I didn't like what I was producing just to say that I have an NFT. I'm like, you know what? When I find something like, okay, Nicholas Laughlin has found, because he and I were kind of talking about it in the earlies, and what he's doing is more in line with what is an NFT for me, right? Now that will change. I mean, NFTs in itself, for those who don't know, NFT is non-fungible token, and it's basically just a piece of code on a crypto blockchain. And there are many, many ways to do this. We're not going to get into the technical things about this. But essentially, if you put a piece of artwork up and you own the code, you technically own the artwork. But it doesn't stop people from taking the artwork and doing whatever they want with it. It's just that it just says digitally you own it. So we won't go into those details. But what I found that what I was seeing as the NFTs, I'm like, you know what? I just don't want to get in this space yet. I want to wait until things, the Wild Wild West, kind of settle. And maybe it's because, like you said, it's exactly that. Maybe just the head too old. The head too old to just, throw things out of the window and just do a variation of Bored Ape. Like you do a variation of Bored Ape. I'm like, no, I don't feel that. That is not me. That is not my creative juices. My creative juices are going to flow into a derivative of a Bored Ape. That's not how it works. Anyway, but that sounds exciting. I think I'll look to see what you end up doing with that. That looks cool because that is the future. That is where it's going.
I'm convinced that blockchain have something to do with the future. And I think, well, for me, what I was getting problems with is pretty much what you're saying. Is the why, why we creating these things. And I think right now it appeals to one very small portion, the NFT that is small portion of things that useful, which is collecting. So like a collector right now making the name, because mostly everything that jump out right now is about, you know, a unique thing, and it's about novelty, I should say. So like you're collecting things, and because this is the first XYZ, you know, in NFT format, it has some value from being the first, you know, even though it might just be, you know, a stick man drawn by a monkey, you know, it's the first NFT that a monkey create. So you have that, and it has some value because of that. But I think the creativity needs to start to come in terms of how we're gonna use this to make beneficial things for people to buy, to, you know, things that have real utility. I know in some instances where I have people purchasing like items for games, you know, game pieces and that kind of thing, I could see the value of that for a gamer. You know, if you could buy a Jordan for your Jordan player in an NBA game, or if you could buy a unique color Ryu, you know, that kind of thing. I guess that will work. You know, that have some utility in terms of the payoff for a gamer. But beyond that, I ain't really seeing much to say, all right, this people should be bidding on this to have this and own this NFT, you know. But all that is part of what we're working on, you know, because there are possibilities, there is room to create, you know, certain things that might be valuable in a real sense. It's just to see how it play off, and if it does well, we happy.
Well, I wish you luck. I'm glad.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean that you're undertaking something there that's rather bold and some would argue revolutionary. So more power to you. More power to you.
We have to be, like I said, we have to be innovative. And I was telling somebody that last year when we started talking about this NFT story. I said, he was like, yeah, but I said, we have to try. We have to try. We have to try something, because we are no more oil. We are no more this. You know, we got to try something. Actually, somebody was telling me on that whole idea of crypto. Somebody was telling me that Trinidad could be the central hub of a huge crypto farm, and I was like, that's a great idea. And then I'm like, yeah, but crypto requires vast amounts of power. You know, it's not like we generate the raw material anymore for that kind of power. We're not using the natural gas we have isn't enough to be pushing that kind of thing yet. I mean, if we could do that, if we could get the natural gas or the oil to power the power stations to push a crypto farm, by all means. Because right now, as a friend of mine told me, he said when he tried to do crypto and he tried to do the mining, he said he get like a nth of a what you call it, Ethereum or whatever it is, in about 6 months. And he said the computer was blowing. He said the whole room hot. And all he gets is little nth. He says it's worth money. Don't get him wrong, he get money. But he said the amount of electricity he burned to get at, you know. But anyway, those are things that can be discussed and talked about and debated. But I mean, I just thought it was funny that somebody would just they would have the pie in the sky idea, and you would think, yeah, that sounds great. And then you really start to think about it and say, yeah, there are some things that you got to overcome first. Not impossible, you just have to overcome them, you know. So yeah, why not? Yep. Talking about the innovation, what I actually wanted to come back to is a story. When we come back to the people of the agency, these are the people in the agency. We're talking about characters who things happen and they seem to escape it. Wasn't that what it was? That was the comment, right, Jarrod?
Yes, that's exactly it.
All right, so the story is this, right? Once upon a time, not long ago, where people wore pajamas and live life slow. That's not how that started the story. But anyway, one year in the agency, long ago, the most innovative thing was what you were doing in the supermarket. So the more innovative you were in the supermarket meant that you would get more sales. So they were trying all kind of fancy 3D posters and neon light signs and things that you kind of taken for granted now. We're now starting to explore it in trade. And one of the things is gondola ends. A gondola end is the shelf. At the end of the shelf, when you walk into the supermarket, you see this thing facing you. And you have to be, you kind of go to town with it. You do some kind of creative kind of thing. But the supermarkets used to charge a lot of money, like serious amount of dollars, for you to rent that space for the period of time that you had a promotion or whatever. So our client got it into their head that instead of doing that, they were given the opportunity that they could use their own separate display that is the same size as the gondola end thing, but off. So like standing separate, standing free, as you enter the supermarkets. And this is a great idea. And they were going to do this all of the islands. They're going to do this in Trinidad. So what they did was they came up, the artists and this account executive came up with this idea of creating this, what they call a display stand. The great idea is awesome. It's like, they created it, making it look 3D and thing, and they sold the client on the idea for this brand. And the client was like, yeah, and the brand is green, right? Not the Green Network, it's another green. And he's like, yeah, it's all green and it's standing out. I love it. Let's produce, I think it was 150 or 250 or some ridiculous amount of these stands. And we send them to Jamaica and we send them to Barbados, we send them and we'll have it in all these stores in Trinidad. So you have to make 250 of these, right? So
sounds like a plan.
Jarrod, you remember when you said earlier what was it that you said that you have the idea, but you realize you can't really do it, right? And Quincy, you said that too, you realize you can't do it because certain drawbacks, right? But because you're like, and it's the same thing we talked about before, because you're like, we don't have problems, we have solutions. All right. Well, the problem, which the solution is more money, is that it's going to cost. Each one of these things is going to cost something in the range of $5,000 to $6,000 for one, right? Or some ridiculous amount of money. It's like $10,000 for one, right? Because it has to be handmade because it's custom. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So rather than go back to the client and say, Hannah, that quote we give you is not $1,000 for one, it's $10,000 for one, which means the budget is now 1 million, right? Or 2 million or whatever it is. Do you want to still go ahead with it? They didn't tell the client anything. They went and they found a supplier who said he could do it for $1,000.
Oh my.
Goodness gracious.
I see where that's going.
Way.
So when I was told the story, because I didn't know what was going on. When I was told the story, 6 months after they commissioned the guy to do it, he hadn't even done 10. Right?
Good
and he had been paid the full amount. So if he was doing 250, he get $250,000 one time. One time. As soon as look, and he buy paint, and he get all the decals and everything that we print for him and give it to him. And so eventually they started asking questions. Well, where are the display stands? Why haven't we seen the display stands? We only see the mock-up of one display stand. When they see the second display stand, the shelves all a kilter and akimbo, nothing parallel, because the man he just taking hammer and nail and going bam, 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 putting this thing together. And it became a huge, what's the word?
It became a debacle.
It was a debacle, but it became a crisis because the client would not say no. The client would not say no, because the client had paid for it, you see. You see, the client had paid for it, and we had made money on it. The agency had already made money on it. So they had to deliver. So they had to send one of the senior artists who's kind of experienced with building things and doing these kind of things, because he wasn't involved in the job. They had to send him, and he had to sit down there and build it himself.
Oh, shit.
250 of these things. And they never did 250. I think they delivered like 100. And the client said, all right, forget it. Don't worry about it. Forget it. That person was never fired. You follow what I'm saying? And I just think to myself, but you just cost the agency like $1 million and something because they had to give back the money because obviously they didn't deliver. You just cost the agency one shitload of money and you're still here. How are you still here? In any other company, they would have told you to pack up this stuff because this is the greatest failure that I have ever seen up to this point in my life. You know, and I'm thinking, okay, you all want to be innovative. Don't get me wrong. It was a great idea. You all came and you pitched the idea and whatever, but you didn't really think it through to really do this, which is what the senior artist said afterwards. He said, well, if I was on this job and you told me that we have to do this, I would tell you, in order to build this, it would cost X. So go to the client and tell them they could realistically get 100 at this price, and we could strategically put it in strategic places rather than try to, like newspaper, just mass produce it. Because as far as the client was concerned, there was a factory making this thing, Right? It was some kind of Latin American company we had hired to build it. I don't know what everywhere at every step of the way, there was some sort of failure of communication, and the money just kept being spent. The money and I remember they brought the green tins of paint back to the agency, and I was just like a shitload of green tint, and it stayed there. I like, well, what are you going? And I think that somebody took that paint and painted the house because somebody say they see a house going down
in that color
with the green color because they said that is the green. They got that's the Pantone green. He went on order especially for the display unit. But again, I wouldn't be disparage them. I wouldn't say that they were stupid. That's not it. I think they drank too much of their own Kool-Aid. Right. And they got wrapped up in really, really trying to deliver, that they forgot, they forgot what was really going to happen at the end of it. And they weren't reprimanded. I don't think I ever heard anything bad happen to these two. And eventually the artist left and he went off and did his own thing. And and I'm like, I don't understand how you could cock up so spectacularly, as Leslie says, and still be working. And not just working, be eventually promoted, because eventually the person was promoted. I'm like, okay, wow, okay, so I guess failing upward is a thing. So that was my story.
I think it's a lot more prevalent than people would care to admit. We know it's something that happens, I think, in virtually every sphere of work you can think of, but it's a lot more prominent, I think, if you're talking about working in as a creative in the creative industry. It is far more prevalent. Yeah. You could and sometimes you would catch your skin trying to figure out, okay, so if I wanted to come up with an idea, how would that work? And if I may be allowed, to have the liberty to talk about the old days in terms of what I used to do in radio and working in news. Sometimes it was a question of coming up, not necessarily with a product, although the news can be considered a product, but what exactly are we going to talk about in terms of current affairs? What storyline do we take? and you have to sell it as well. And
Right.
that's what and the challenge for me, was to come up with a 15-minute special report for a radio station. And I was young and I was green and I was also up shit creek because every biatch and their brother came up with this really cool concept. What to talk about, whether it was politics, whether it was crime, whether it was business, and they all had a clear cut thing. I didn't. And the reality of the situation was, when you're faced with a situation like that, you wing it, which is what I did. So the story, the 15-minute feature that I came up with, and it was a stretch because it was about the environment, which by itself is not a bad thing. But if you're talking about the environment as seen through the eyes of the trade union movement, yeah, how the ass was I supposed to marry the two to get the two together? It was like trying to have a duck. It was like trying to have a duck mate with a porcupine. It wasn't going to fucking happen.
Yeah.
So
Aflac.
I did, but I did it anyway. And sometimes in the quest for trying to and if you're linking it with advertising, as I always say, if you want to come up with a boss idea, sometimes you have to punch ugly. Sometimes you have to just say, well, you know what? If we're gonna have to go through a ton load of shit to get to the sweet spot, let's do it. And you do it. That I guess I'm that's what I'm trying to explain, however imperfectly I put it. But yeah.
I understand and I agree. I mean, I had not to the extent that Ian spoke about, but I had a kind of idea that we jumped out with that time for a client. It involved building a Rube Goldberg machine, right?
I know about those. Yes.
Yeah. So, which is a elaborate machine to do a menial task, a very simple task.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so we decide, for this client, hey, well, at least I decided, let me do this machine. I was like, yeah. So, we contract a dude, a local artist, a builder. He heard the idea because we didn't have any sketches or anything like that. We just had the idea. And he was like, well, yeah, I can build that. I could do that.
Yeah, man, we could do that.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
Of course.
Always, we start off hot and sweaty.
Yeah. We had a time frame for producing it, which to jump to the end of the story, we missed our mark by real plenty. Right? And the client organized for us to get our warehouse space because it was a big machine, get our warehouse space to build it in, and the whole team was down there working on it, and I kind of seen the builders team, that is. And there's coming up with good stuff, like real good stuff. And a machine like that is complicated because a lot of measurements and exact measurements and dealing with physics and momentum of things and that kind of scene. So long and short, the machine was finished. It was pretty awesome. It was way past the time. Way past the time. And I think the person that was working on it, on the client side, I think left and all that. So like we had that whole transition where kind of new management scene, and they're not familiar with it, and they thinking, where's this? So we end up with this big machine. I don't even know who paid for it, to be honest. I don't know who paid for it.
God.
But this real big machine.
Quincy, what was the machine doing? What was it supposed to do? I mean, at the end result, what was it supposed? What? It was just supposed to look fancy, but did it have a purpose? I mean,
yes, it had a purpose. You're supposed to. How it started by? It was something to do with. It was a fire beverage, and it literally would pour the beverage for you, but going through a whole set of things.
Right.
Yeah, using little sports references and things. So it had cricket involved and football and that kind of thing. And there's all these things rolling about and triggering things and some dominoes and that kind of scene. And then it pour like the perfect drink for you kind of scene. And it was just supposed to be a fun novelty thing that might travel around the country and that.
Yeah.
No, I tell you, if we had do it on time and everything, it would have been a spectacle, I'd say. And we were going to actually do a video with it and shoot it, again, thinking about, how it could populate different platforms and things. You could do a video, well, we wanted to do a video that would be a little more stylized, it's tracking the ball and, setting up a nice shot for when certain things happen. So it'll be real dynamic and, edit it to music and have it looking sick.
Yeah.
That would have become a TV ad. And then, for the live thing that was linked to our online promotion and all that, it was real dynamic. It was a nice campaign if it was supposed to come off. But two things in retrospect. One, it was a little more elaborate than it needed to be for the type of promotion that it was. It's one of them little,
just one more moving part than necessary.
Yeah, it was supposed to be, a buy this and save your rappers or save your corks or whatever, and get a chance to win.
Oh gosh!
I say, what about if we do this?
Yeah. My head just exploded. Wait, now we could do this though.
We could do this, and the presentation was great, Everybody was like, yeah, that's real sick, we never seen nothing like that again before. It's like, yeah, I think it's real, man, let me do it. And it's like, yeah, look, everybody do it. That turned into, yeah, we still do it.
That was, They had a campaign back in the 80s, right? It was called the Letters Game for Coca-Cola and Sprite. And back then in those days, it wasn't so much in the bottles, but we were in the cans.
Right.
You had the Coke and the Sprite, every time you pull open the thing with the ring on the underside, it would have the letter. So if you can get that, so if you bought 3 Cokes, for example, and each ring spelled CAP cap, you win a cap.
Right.
Game. And everybody catching their ass to get a V because everyone is in the video game. But
I remember that.
You remember that? But the thing about it is, right? The problem with that was the NLCB called and tell them, hey, all they had to stop doing that because it's like a lottery all you have. And all they're not supposed to do that. So
once there's money involved.
That
That
is gaming.
What is a game?
It just fell apart. But Lord, it was a boss idea. But again, it was symptomatic of what sometimes happens when we do ad campaigns. We don't think it through. But it was fun. It was a fun thing. I liked it. I thought it was a nice idea. But back then,
The only other thing I remember is when we spoke about this before. I won't go back into it. Is when we tried to do that 360 effect thing and tag people, and the executive said, no, I don't want to be tagged in nothing else. The YYC with our next one. Nah, we ain't doing that. But I'm trying to think like big ideas. Okay. Oh yes, actually, it wasn't as interesting as the overproduced electronic item that Quincy was talking about. But the launch of the the Transformers movie. We did a tie-in with the telecommunications network people. And somehow they got it into their head that they would build a full-size Transformer robot in front of the cinema. And it did come off, huh? It did come off. The problem with it is that it went over budget and pieces was falling off. So Sharon wanted to go and run up and hug the thing. It's like, no, you cannot hug the thing. It will fall over and kill everybody. It will literally fall into the box office and kill everybody. Right? And when I look at it, I say, but wait, you take a whole battery and spray paint it silver and shove it into where the leg's supposed to be. That is what you do? And it's leaking? What in jail is it? Like, no, we didn't have time. You know, the premiere was coming up. But we did a successful tie-in with Star Trek when Star Trek was rebooted in 2009. They built the whole Enterprise in the middle of the movie town foyer, and people could sit down at the controls and thing, and you had people dressed as the characters and all that. That came off beautifully. That was awesome. You know?
Man.
I remember when they came up with the Incredible Hulk, and we were working. Of course, obviously the Green Network was in play here, and they really couldn't afford to get like a somebody in a Hulk costume. So what it did, and sometimes the simplest method is usually the best. You know, they hired a bodybuilder, and they slapped green paint on him.
No, they didn't slap green paint on him.
They slapped green paint on him anyway.
No, they didn't slap green paint on him because I have an insight of that. My brother's people had to body paint him with airbrush, right? And that took a whole day. And the problem with that is it looked terrible because, again, the problem is that the man showed up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for the premiere at 8. So you only had 5 hours to do this thing. And Robert, my brother, who runs the tattoo parlor with the body art, Curban, body art was commissioned to airbrush the guy because that's what they do too. Because one of body art's thing during Carnival is airbrushing abs on people, you know. You know that, right?
Yeah.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. You have a man with a big pot belly with abs airbrush, but they would pay through the nose for it.
It's carnival, yo.
Yeah, you understand?
So I'm not going to get into that, but the guy was painted green, right? Applying the green paint was fine. But then you had to start putting in all the veins and the shadows and thing, and the pants had to be ripped up properly and all. And it took forever. Only for like a couple of hours to just start up for this premiere. He said, well, they paid plenty of money for it. But again, it didn't look the greatest and the best because, you know, you don't think about how long he said this thing should have taken at least from 12 o'clock. We should have prepped him. And then, you know, I think the guy, no, it wasn't that one. Somebody else had complained that the body paint, he was allergic to it. They didn't know. He didn't know. You know, so he got a little rash and thing, and he said he never do that again. You know? But anyway, these are the stories of working on brands and doing. I mean, you're not going to see those kind of things again. Huh? Nobody have that kind of budget again to say, well, I'm going to paint a man green. You know. Yeah. I see some cosplay in there for the launch of Avengers a couple of years ago. And I like, Nadja, that is not the Avengers, no? That's the Avengers. That's just the Avenge.
The Avenge.
The Avenge. I mean, the girl, the lady saw the girl dressed up as Thor, and she looked hot. I'm like, yeah, that is all right. I can work with that, but that's not Avengers. That is strip club. That is strip club Avengers. Anyway, guys, this was great. I think we shall end on that
I
note.
wanted to stick in a real quick one. And this is just in light of, big ideas, but simple ideas that had big impact. And at least we could talk about one that worked. I didn't work on this, but this back in the day I was young. You all remember I believe it had to be a Nestle promotion with butterflies on the wrapper.
Yes. Nestle condensed milk.
Yeah, condensed milk.
That's
and
right.
You get your booklet, right? You pick up a book. And when you buy the milk, you take the wrapper off, and behind the wrapper had a butterfly with information and that kind of thing. Different butterflies. That was a real simple idea, but I mean, if you think about it, it was a big deal in that you had to print these booklets, right? Then, the kind of therapy that you had to go through to get communication on a label. There's talking about supply and run and that kind of thing, and they had to get a fresh run so that at a time when they're printing new labels and that kind of scene. The logistics again, that to work. You had to be on point with it, right? But they pull it off, and it was real big. I mean, it's something that a lot of people remember. And that was a real successful, at least from my perspective as a consumer at the time.
Absolutely. I remember that.
I was never so interested in condensed milk as a youth. Not when them butterflies were around. When I come in from the grocery buy, am I ready to take off them labels as we reach home to see what's going on to finish my book,
Yeah.
And the think about it, the payoff for that was you have a book of butterflies. That's the payoff. That's it. No money, not it's just this nice thing. But it was big. That was a big promotion, I find. And it worked.
I think the whole idea of putting, things in cereal boxes as a gimmick. Really, as kids, the Frico thing was our version of it, where you get the Frico spaceship thing. But I mean, when as a child, you used to pester your parents to go and buy this terrible tasting cereal just so you could get some in a series because you had to collect them now. And that was a big thing because you didn't want to go to school saying you didn't have it. And this whole idea of that I learned later, long after, in the marketing world, it's called gatekeeping, where you used to, you couldn't advertise to the child, but you used to make the children push the parents to buy it, right? And that's cereal and all those kind of things. But I mean, you don't see those things anymore. And
it's a pity, It's a pity because I think if to be 9 years old again, and you have.
But you're not 9 years old now. You're a big child.
I don't know. Maybe emotionally, I'm still 9 years old. But the thing about it is, there's a joy in digging in the people's cereal box, and my surprise, my thing of choice, and it's a silly little thing. It's like a plastic skateboard attached to a balloon. You blow up the balloon, and as you let it go, the skateboard move in. That to me was like the best thing ever for me. And and the sad thing about it is today's kids, they had that kind of anticipation then. They say, oh God, which is a pity. It really is sad.
Also, that a lot of the times have changed where you used to go with your parents, your mom, to pick you up from school. You used to go to the grocery on whenever it was, Tuesday evening, Friday evening, at least up for me. So you used to see a lot of that. A lot of kids used to go with their parents after school. You get picked up from school, you go into the groceries and you go home, right? So you always kind of pester, say, I want this, I want this, I want it. My kids never grew up like that. Their mom used to go, their mom goes to the grocery on her own while they're in school, while they're home or whatever. So they're not there to actively, and one of the things is I have to actually physically force my children to come with me to the grocery because that's not in their that's not in their sphere at all. You know, going to the grocery, the parent didn't exist or doesn't exist for them. So this thing about, well, I want this cereal because it has something. I took my eldest son to the grocery for him to pick out the cereal he wants to eat for breakfast. I say, you go and pick it out. And he's like, it don't matter, everything here tastes the same. I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay. He's like, all right, I'll choose the one with chocolate because, I mean, you can't go wrong with chocolate, right? And then he started, he's like, yep, I went wrong with chocolate. This thing tastes terrible. Because I tried it after, like, yeah, boy, this thing tastes terrible. It's right when Willy Wonka says about cereal. Cereal is just good favorites.
But what's up with these kids and taste? Yo, we didn't care about taste.
We didn't care about taste, man.
Only remember Zero Heroes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Do you even remember that Zero Heroes used to come with a chewing gum?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the worst. I think that is probably hands down worst.
Yeah, you used to chip up in pieces and cut up your gum and thing.
That was a horrible, like it's not even chewing gum. You know what I mean? It's like, I need this chewing gum because it says, what is this?
Yeah.
But we used to buy that, we used to buy it. And I used to chew the chewing gum too and throw it away and complain every time. But I have the Cape Rockhead, you know, so I'm glad.
There's a whole...
An egg with the barbarian.
That whole story of the Zero Heroes and Garbage Pail Kids and all those things that came with gum, the story behind that is extremely interesting. How they did that, and it's worthy of comment. But the idea that in the beginning, it was about selling the gum, and then it turned out to be, and that's how Topps cards and all these big card manufacturers came. In the end of the day, it wasn't about the gum at all. It was about the cards. And they recognized that and realized that. But again, kids, there's Pokemon now. Pokemon used to be card collecting Pokemon. And now, my kids don't even do that. Like, and Magic the Gathering, all these things. I like, y'all don't do any of this stuff. And they're like, yeah, well, we have everything on the tablets and the computer and wherever now. So, whatever. Anyway, guys, this was awesome. Turned out really great. Quincy, thank you for jumping in. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We had fun. Thank you. Guys who are listening, have a great week. Thank you for joining us and listening. We have to define something before we go there, John. What do we define? What is Zero Heroes? I don't think anybody knows what Zero Heroes are. What's Zero Heroes, Jarrod?
Zero Heroes. Zero Heroes actually is about I think a bunch of misfits who are supposed to have superheroes, but the reality have superpowers. But the reality of the situation is they don't have any superpowers at all, which is why they're called Zero Heroes. But that's
not important.
Not important right now.
No. Thank you very much. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great week. Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye, guys. Bye.